lasers have an effect. They're laser, yeah, light amplified, yeah, and when it hits crystal like this, yeah, you can see it beaming, passing back and forth. That's actually amplifying the light inside this crystal, and that's hitting the whole thing, so it literally becomes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times more powerful. Yeah, so just cook it up just for a second. Can you see it beaming around like lightning or something? That ought to cook us up a little bit, huh, folks? All right, so this amplifies everything inside of here, which is amplifying everything outside of there. It all has a resonatory kind of harmonic signature. Yeah, so that's just part of the science of light, yeah, science of color and light. Humanity doesn't use that a whole lot because humanity is kind of stuck in a process of dealing with the amount of energy that comes out of the astral plane and all the influences that humanity takes on. How many people we got out there? 160 today? 160. How many new? 7. Great. Hello, new. Yeah. We'll get to meditation in about 10 minutes, maybe 15. Yeah. But I like to cover a little bit of the Christ view of the esoteric scenario of humanity and how it is being worked out. Yeah. But the more we discern, discriminate, the more we actually have an awareness behind the truth of the working out of a plan, that there actually is a plan, and that working out of a plan actually settles down and amplifies. It's like me doing laser on these crystals. Yeah? By every time I give more information around the truth, it amplifies inside of you the truth. That becomes a point of discernment and discrimination. You actually radiate that truth into something else. Yeah, it doesn't just stick inside yourself, just like what I'm doing right now. Yeah. So the biggest process in humanity is the astral reality and its dogma. A price we all pay in the process of the fact that in astral meaning the process in which people live out their lives through habit and through an influence of addiction. Yeah? Whether they're addicted to doing tattoos, or they're addicted to, living a certain cultural lifestyle. Yeah, and that process is more who they are rather than who they are. Yeah? So they're more part of the influence of a mass cultural dogma. Yeah? And the belief system is that, they're quite the opposite of dogma. They're breaking free. They're initializing their own identity. They're making a mark of their tattoo, giving them a sense of identity that they can be seen for in their own individual self. But that's not the case. They actually were recruited to do it, and their lack of ability to discern or discriminate or be able to have a sense of, this is not what I should be doing. Yeah, this is definitely not the person I'm going to be 30 years from now. Yeah, 20 years from now, 10 years from now. But they're much more in an involutionary state, totally unaware of their future, having absolutely no concept of their future reality. It's all self ish. Yeah? It's all a part of a process which their discernment and discrimination only comes to discrimination. They're just discriminating. Oh, I want that tattoo. I want this tattoo. I'll take that tattoo. Yeah? They're not discerning why they're getting that tattoo. They may, in the beginning, go, oh, I want the jumping frog, because it reminds me of where I lived. There used to be a jumping frog, There might be a couple tattoos like that, yeah? But in most cases, the person goes in either drunk, or under drugs, or under the influence of a friend who has tattoos, and they are going to do it together, and, they're going to do this, and it's going to rite of initiation. Yeah, that's one of the biggest delusions around the process of the personality being inducted into the delusion that there is a process in which they're actually creating some kind of connection with their identity. Yeah, I've had a person say to me, well, I see your form, I think it's really neat, and I was thinking of using a geometric pattern like that and putting it on a tattoo. And I go, well, if you're gonna do anything, do a Metatron's cube, but I wouldn't recommend doing the tattoo. I'd recommend just getting a solar form, and wear that. It'd be much better for everybody. Yeah, but still, the person is stuck on tattoo. Yeah, it's not about the Metatron's cube. It's not about this or that. It's about the process of putting the tattoo on. So literally, there's an habitual influence of discriminating process that's lacking discernment, and it's stuck like a habit, like an addiction, yeah, where they just a knee-jerk, they can't get out of it. Well, all of us are weaker in society because of the process that goes on in society that has to do with this energy. The process of heading out to football games every Thursday night or whatever night it is, and you got your team, you got your flags, you got your big finger, you got all these hats, you've got all these things, and you get to the game, and you're sitting there in your colors, and you got your number, and you got and your girlfriend's just as crazy as you are now. Yeah, just as obsessed, just as neurotic, just as compulsive, just as much a team player as anybody else, as though it really matters. Yeah, but it's not a process of them becoming better relationships. We have comparable relationship because we both go to football games, we both enjoy sports, we both do things together. It doesn't matter. It's still a recruiting process, and now it's including the larger masses of society. And the process where there used to be a separation, where guys would just go, well, that's a man's thing. We're in sports, we've got our man cave. This is what we do. Well, soon there's going to be commercials of women's caves. Yeah, and they're kind of situation, and they're massive tattoos, and then soon after that, there's going to be men who are women, who are out, and expressing, and they've got their whatever cave, and it's all the same thing. It's all exactly the same thing. It is a terrible psychological implication on the lack of discernment and discrimination inside of humanity, to where we really are not helping guide people's souls. Yeah, they're in a process to where they're so influenced by the recruiting process of soulless people that it's causing more and more people to become soulless. Yeah, and to have an identity of themselves, even though they're actually believing that I'm totally focused on my identity. I am heavy into football. I'm heavy into baseball, basketball. I watched one show where there was a man probably in his 30s, married, has a couple kids, and is obsessed with football. So he's got to, every Saturday, along with working, 12-hour jobs, 6 days a week, every Saturday he's got to coach little kids, little boys, into hitting each other and beating the shit out of each other with football. And to him, it's a way for him to express his aggression and hate and get other little kids to get out there and hurt other people. Let's take them down. Let's hurt these guys. You know, he's really expressing a lot of hate. And he won't stop doing it, despite the fact that it's ruining his marriage, destroying his life, probably going to kill him of a heart attack, yeah? Keeping him completely away from making any kind of discernment about his diet, about his own personal life, about possibly meditating, possibly being a better person, possibly being kinder, possibly getting a job that doesn't require 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, you know, making discerning, discriminating decisions that evolve the person toward the future. So when he gets into his 60s, he's going to be a healthy, happy person who really felt he did all the right things in his life to grow and mature. Yeah? But these behaviors, this process, is hate. Yeah? It's self-hate, it's hate, and he has to be able to express his hate, so he's recruiting little boys in order to put their helmets on and put their, you know, things on, and then they're the ones who lose the most hateful ones go out there and they say, go kill him, knock him down, drag him on the ground, break bones, man, get on that guy, you know. They're the ones losing, yeah, because they can't think, they can't discern, they can't discriminate, they can't make a move, they have no independent reality of themselves. They're the worst football players out there. And the other ones where the coaches are going, yeah, good job, you know, nice kids, you know, aren't they doing great, you know, keep it moving, guys, you know. And they're just playing their little hearts out, you know, they're independent and they're kind of moving. I'm not saying football is anything good, but the direction you take in anything has a direct effect to the outcome of what's going on, yeah. And this process inside of humanity, you know, of discernment and discrimination actually has a waveform process, an energy process that densifies the material plane. It makes it very, very difficult for us to understand what's happening on a higher level. What's happening? Why is the president doing what the president's doing? How come we can't discern a liar? How come we can't discern when a person's a liar? How come we think the person is a saint? How is it possible that we can actually be so deluded and confused in the process of thinking that Hitler, you know, all the people, you know, walking down with their legs going out like that, and they're doing all the things, and they're slaughtering all these people, and they're killing all these Jews, and they're mass, you know, just scientific investigations of things with absolutely no control over human rights or anything like that. And they're just following a process that has to do with a lack of discernment, a lack of discrimination, and a recruiting process. A very, very powerful recruiting process, oriented toward thinking, oh, look, you know, we're an ancient race. We're like gods incarnated, you know. We're like the Aryan race. We're like, you know, we're truly the epitome, the highest race of all humanity. So, you know, then we get skinheads now, and we get people who think that, you know, they're superior to all other races, and they're just stupider than stupid. But it's just an off branch of what was incredibly stupid by the hundreds of thousands of people being led to think that. And same with the people following the Dalai Lama, same with the people following the Pope, same with the people following our president, yeah, following your congressman, yeah, following your senator, following the laws that happen in your county, yeah, seeing a county literally close schools one after another, close police departments one after another, close fire departments one after another, and then they go bankrupt. Yeah, all the houses fall out of mortgage, all over the United States. Yeah, what do we learn from it? Not one thing. Yeah, because we're too busy being overthrown by the influence of what's happening in our society. Laws of making it lawful so that men and men can get married, as though that's important. That's what we should be focusing on today. Yeah? Yeah? Not that we should be making a better decision on whether or not we actually focus only on solar and make a great transition toward the technology of solar around the world and manifest everything that could possibly be done technologically around the world and bring it to a synthesis. Yeah? Discernment and discrimination and future view, yeah? A process that will change everything 10, 20, 30 years from now, yeah? And will grow exponentially will grow to be freer and freer and freer from oil, from debt, from all kinds of things, from possibly even destroying the earth and the inhabitants that are on it. Yeah? Yeah? Who wants it to be so hot, yeah, that, we can't get through the summer, and so cold we can't get through the winter, and that it's snowing in Florida, it's flooding in Chicago, yeah? Yeah? Influences of weather become so insurmountable, yeah? And it's all caused by our lack of discernment and discrimination. We have to put our attention toward things that have to get done, and they have to be done now. They can't be done by other people. They have to be done by everybody. Everybody has to make a discernment and a discriminating process of focus. That's why meditation is so important. That's why putting tools like this out is so important. If you grab an etheric weaver, a vajra, you start meditating, you start listening to teachings like this, I'm going to tell you, all this stuff every single time, yeah? Because it is insurmountably so important, yeah? We do not have reasons for staying in wars and keeping an economy the way it is just simply because we're at war, yeah? There's not a rational reasoning behind it, yeah? Other than the fact that we're not in charge of the economy and how economy works and how social conditioning works, to where we actually are in a belief system to where we'll take our 18-year-old son and move him forward, to continue what happened in the Civil War with great-great-great-great-grandpa, and then great-great-great-grandpa again in World War I, and another grandpa again in World War II, and another grandpa again in World War, in Vietnam. Oh, Dad, he was a mess, and didn't get my brother back, didn't get my cousin back, all these people we lost, but hey, they sacrificed themselves for our freedom, and never have we ever attained freedom that way. Not one day of freedom did we ever attain by sacrificing human lives. Yeah, it just doesn't work like that. Yeah, it works by negotiation. It works by discernment and discrimination. It works by giving to people who think that they're actually at a loss for what they need to get out of life. Countries, whether it be Pakistan, whether it be Vietnam, whether it be Germany, whether it be North Korea or South Korea. Yeah, they have to be talked to and negotiated. Find out where their problem lies. Yeah, find out why they feel so separate. Find out why this is a particular reasoning behind their nature. And find things that actually are compatible and understandable, and begin negotiating, begin talking, begin communicating, and start bridging where there's separation, bringing a unified relationship together so that we don't see ourselves as so separate. Just like Muslims or Catholics or this or that, having a separate view, prejudicely, biasly, using discrimination at all times, constantly just using discrimination. That creates wars. It creates the process of our culture. It creates the process of a thinking that we have to have big trucks with big wheels that have a lot of gas, because I have the right to do that. I simply want to be able to I want to be able to smoke. I want to be able to smoke in the open. I want to be able to smoke, in a bar. Why the hell can I smoke in a bar? And it's just this discernment and discrimination process that keeps holding people in a process to where their inertia is moving them backwards. And that inertia spreads into a vibration, into humanity. And it makes us very insensitive. Yeah? It's very hard as an individual to become openly awake and sensitive and start making decisions for yourself rather than being constantly bombarded by the wrong decisions that are happening in the world, and you can't do anything about it. And it affects you in such a way that it actually makes you insensitive toward the things that you need to change in your life. How you can make these things happen, how you can manifest a better situation. So meditation helps to break that process, helps to bring about an influence that's coming in that actually increases our ability to consciously elevate the energy behind what comes from discernment. Yeah? The influence of discernment is like revelation. It's like, oh wow, now I get that. I see that we can do solar, because if you come up with some really good idea, there is somebody who's going to go, yeah, but. Every time. I do it all the time. I'm constantly Mr. Yeah, good. These are good things going to happen next. I'm always talking like that. I don't care what you've got to complain about. I will come out with something, and just go, yeah, and my yeah, but is, yeah, but it's getting better. Yeah, but you're doing things that's making it better. Yeah, but this is really what's going on. Yeah, but you're kind of forgetting, I'm always talking like that. But that is not the way most people do it. Yeah, most people are the other side of this game. You say something positive and they go, yeah, but I'm probably going to die of cancer. Yeah, but what if I have diabetes? Yeah, but yeah, but I'm not doing enough. Yeah, but I didn't do it last week, and I did all these bad things. And who really knows whether or not you did hardly any bad things? Yeah. Your discernment and discrimination really isn't there to weigh out your good things or your bad things. So the best thing to do is stay with an open mind that you are definitely doing better. You are definitely all the time doing better. And you're definitely all the time working toward that, because if you're not thinking in those terms, then you're not thinking in terms of higher mind. And you'll never discern. You'll only discriminate. Yeah, and it is a habitual process. You will recruit other people into your discrimination. Yeah, but that is a recruiting statement. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we really have to watch what we say, because we're actually being affected by our aura, which is connected to a whole bunch of other people's auras, who are liars and deceivers and con people and manipulators, and they're adjusting the circumstances as they sit in order to get gains for themselves. Yeah? And that's really affecting your ability to trust how the world is happening and not feel some form of connection with that, as though you're connected to the Ponzi scheme. There's got to be something inside of you that's bad too. You see something bad on TV, your negative, really badass mind, will immediately go, I can relate to that. And you're thinking in terms of the negative. Oh, this outcome of this person, this is like that person, reminds me of this very bad scenario. Yeah? And then you keep watching and it doesn't turn out like that. And your mind only sticks on to the fact that it reminds you of the really bad scenario, despite the fact that the whole movie turned out to be a different thing and it did not have that outcome, didn't even have a connection to what you're thinking. Yeah? But you will use your mind as an opportunity in order to recruit humanity to pledge themselves to the vile, destructive qualities that humanity has in its relationship to being subjected to negative beliefs. Yeah? Negative belief systems. Yeah? So it's like if there's anything we're going to change, we have to try and change whether or not we're going to discern or whether or not we're going to discriminate. If we're going to discern, we have to stop saying, yeah, but. Yeah? We have to try and do everything, because when we do this, we're actually pushing this fifth ray, this thing for revelation, this thing that is spiritually supposed to help to adapt to another person and make everybody feel that they can make it the next step. You know how hard life is, It's always better to have someone standing next to you going, we can do this, rather than someone standing next to you, why are we doing this? Yeah? This is stupid. This is a drain. We're probably going to die. Do you have water? I don't know. Did you bring food? And just the conversation just literally whittles you down. You're only halfway down the track. And you're ready to turn around. The person's literally talked you into, turn around. Let's go back. And it's just as far to walk back as it is to walk forward. But the constant discriminating process will help you decide. You've been on the freeway, and your discriminating mind stays so constant and so doubtful that as you're driving along, all of a sudden you're imprinted in yourself, I've already passed where I'm going. I'm way past where I've gone. I am so far past where I should be. Now look at that. Oh my God, that sign. I know that sign means I've at least driven a mile or 2 or 3. Maybe I'm on the wrong freeway. Yeah, your mind will just go on, and then you'll get so anxious, and you're looking around, you're trying to pay attention to the next sign, you're trying to get over to the next turn off, and almost every single time you turn off just one turn off before you're supposed to turn off. Yeah, and you got, oh, look at that, I remember this. Oh, yeah, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so then you turn around, you go back, and you find out what, Yeah, and the same thing when you lose something. You think you lost something, but you really didn't lose anything. You're just in process. Yeah? It may not be in your life for the rest of your life, but it's just a process. It's just a process. If you really let it go and you have a positive side and you don't go, yeah, but, yeah, I should organize myself, I should be gonna, holy Christ, we don't need another person like that on the planet. They don't give you time to think. They don't give you any time to think, any time to make a decision for yourself. It's just automatic, this is what you should do, this is how you should do it. You better put it over there, put that over there, and let's do this differently tomorrow, Planning out tomorrow, but you'll never do that. You'll never do the things you say you're going to do in those moments like that, because they're meaningless. They're actually totally meaningless gobbledygook energy that just is taking you into a thought form, rather than just having your telepathy come up and go, in the drawer, in the drawer, in the drawer. Yeah. They're in the drawer. I would have never thought I put my phone in the drawer or something. Yeah. And or a phone in the refrigerator. Yeah. I had a person tell me one time, I've lost my phone once, a few times, and then the son says, well, yeah, right, sure, you did, a lot, And then I said, well, at least you never forgot it in the refrigerator, And then the son jumps up and he goes, that's exactly what she did. It was in the refrigerator and she couldn't find it for the longest time. Finally, we came across it. How did you know that? Yeah, and that's how funny life is. Yeah, life is telepathic. Life is a process to where if you're just like me, if you're just so, always on this positive thing, then you will get not only for yourself, but for other people, you will get the working out of something that makes it lighthearted. Yeah? Not a big deal. But when you're looking for that phone and you stole it, somebody stole it, I just know it, you know it? Yeah, I know it, and you never really know, yeah? So this whole astral thing has a tendency to bring this automatic process for us to push this fifth ray down into our sacral center, and that constantly, I don't know, the people who are new, I don't know if they know the relationship of the rays and how the chakras work, it's a really in-depth kind of thing, yeah, and I go on and on and on about it in darshans, yeah, but just to give you an idea, the process of the fifth ray is a process of concrete mind, yeah, the process of the higher mind that actually is so pinpointed and so focused and so right on, yeah, that it connects you to the moment, so you can reveal whatever's going on in the moment, and it can resonate with a process inside your brain that actually helps to connect collectively inside of a social pattern of what would make the best moment for everybody tonight, what would make the best moment for everybody in the future, yeah? All these cooperative decisions that go on inside of humanity, all of them, every single one of them, not done by a recruiting process, but actually a liberating thought form that's coming out of the brow that actually reveals to humanity something that is so auspicious and so common sense that it draws humanity into making decisions that move in that direction. And that makes us, in the future, it makes us go, wow, we were cosmically moved, and these things came into our hands, and I had a dream of it. I actually thought of that. I could have admitted that, yeah? And we did. Because this fifth ray sitting in our brow, we are the collective energy that brings about the new inventions and the new ideas into humanity. Yeah? So it's really important that these energies of chakras. Let me show you the over here. Yeah, and are they on the screen? People looking at them. Okay, in the chakras, there's the process of upward, going up, which is the healthy side, and it's an energy that flows naturally in the human being when they're healthy. When they're not going, yeah, but the yeah, but is the unhealthy side. Yeah, it's a side over there where you see that fourth ray up here. Yeah, and you see the seventh ray way down on the bottom, and you see the fifth ray at the sacral center. Yeah, and you see the influences of these rays are quite different than the ones over here. The ones on the healthy side, the fifth ray sitting at the brow, the fourth ray sitting at the bottom, and the seventh ray sitting at the sacral center. If you would imagine, these rays have very powerful influences of ways of looking at things. Yeah, the influence of how you discern something. Yeah, you can't, if they're sitting in this unhealthy side, you will be, they're set up for you to discriminate automatically, spontaneously. It's very hard for you to get out of it. But on a healthy side, it's set up for you to see it from above, like the fourth ray, which is harmony through conflict. That sees it up on the top, which is like Shambhala. Yeah, the influence of the world, and it's, you can see all the things that add up to make it an evolutionary world. Yeah, spiritual development, the process of meditation, the process of, oh my God, the iPhone, what a difference that made in my life. Then I got myself a computer earlier in the 80s and 90s, and everything. You start having the influence of understanding and seeing things that actually have to do with the cooperation of the working out of things that need to be evolved technologically or through different types of new advancements, whether it be your car or your home or your job skills, coming out of a coal mine, going into computer technology, coming out of mass producing cars and having all kinds of carpal tunnel and everything, and then all of a sudden you're the person who's actually setting up the software and running the computer for the robots. And the robots are doing all this work. And now you're just a very happy person who doesn't have a lot of stress, and you're able to do and see things manifested in ways that are beyond your future ways of conceiving things, but it's ways that are manifesting. All the computer, all the technologies, all add up to make these things happen. That's what you actually get to sense. You get to sense Shambhala in your will center. Yeah, and you can actually see harmony through conflict from your base center. You can actually witness out into the world like I do. Yeah, I witness out into the world and go, and it's like this, and it's changing, and it's going on like that, and this is going on. And any negativity, any negative things that you can see out there, you're seeing it through your solar plex. You're seeing it through your heart, because you're a healer, and you're compassionate, and you have empathy. Yeah, and you do not want to. You automatically just go, gosh, you see this basketball player, you think that they're just having a good time. But when you see them hit the floor and their head hits that hard wood floor and they bounce and they don't get up and walk around very well, they've got a concussion, yeah? When they hit head to head, they get a concussion. When two girls in a soccer game hit head to head in their soccer game, they get concussions, When little kids get together and hit a ball and it goes bam right into the face of another person, they get a concussion. Yeah, and there's something inside of us, an empathy inside of us in that sixth ray and second ray that allows us to sense what it's like. Yeah, we don't have to go, get them an x-ray, prove it's a concussion, how bad was it, do they need to stop the game, do they need to sit on the sidelines for 2 years, do they need to never play again because it's going to cause major effects for the rest of their life. That's not our discernment and discrimination. We're not seeing it in that way. We need technology. We need to be shown just how disastrous it really is. But if we had empathy, we wouldn't need that. If we had empathy, we just simply would have a very strong intention over the fact, I willfully am not going to put my child or other children in harm's way. Yeah? But the other side, goes, but am I going to protect them for the rest of their life? Am I going to keep them from ever getting hurt? Life is like this, People get hurt. So let them jump out of a plane. Let Let them jump off the roof. You know, they're kids. They got to do shit like that. You know, let them skateboard, do flips and backflips, and break every bone in their body, crack their skulls 100 times, and not mandate that they have to wear all these pads and all these helmets and everything. Even if they wear the pads and helmets, they're still going to break their bones. They're still going to get their head. You know, no matter how many times you build a better helmet for a football player, you cannot stop a 400-pound hit, you know, at like a Mack truck coming at you head to head, you know, and then throwing you to the ground. Yeah? Yeah, that process requires empathy for us to make a discernment. We should not have to wait for lawsuits and thousands of football players to come forward and say, I can't recognize my children. You know, I don't remember what day it is, you know, and I don't even know how many concussions I had. No one really was able to monitor what really is a concussion, yeah, because a little concussion could be a big concussion. You never know. They should not be put in the situation. Just like war. You go to war, they come back with missing limbs, missing eyes, missing heads, you know, missing brain, you know, missing emotions, missing everything, yeah? And all we do is just say, well, you know, they sacrificed themselves for ours, yeah? We should not put them in harm's way. We shouldn't. We have the technology, we have the advancement, we have the communication skills. If we had the empathy, if we developed this thing called empathy, which means that we have to stop saying, yeah, but. If you say, yeah, but, it means you do not have empathy. Does that make sense? Yeah? You want to always think, I've got empathy. You know, what the shit is empathy? Yeah? You know, is empathy, you know, the ability to actually read another's mind, you know, or actually see into a person whether or not they're healthy or unhealthy? Yeah? Empathy has to do whether or not you have a conscious feeling of whether or not this person is being harmed. And it affects you in the ability to go along with that process. Yeah? And a strong part of you, even this thing, yeah, but that process causes harm. Yeah? So if you had empathy, you would have empathy in the fact that you're going to cause harm in saying it. It's not going to cause a furthering process of making yourself a better person, or deciding how to organize yourself, or deciding how to make your diet change, or decide how to do a better lifestyle. Yeah? That negative questioning has nothing to do with developing empathy. Yeah? So really, developing empathy is the key thing in these chakras. You'll see that 2-6 does not change at any time. Yeah? That's the only one. 3 stays the same, but it doesn't stay the same with the chakra that it's connected to. Yeah? The only one that actually stays the same is 2-6. So we have this enormous possibility to where we can actually have empathy, and if we choose a relationship of not saying as much as we might say through these other linear ways of thinking that we can organize or change or find fault, and through finding fault we can fix. Yeah? If we actually use discernment first rather than discrimination, discernment gives us the higher mind to actually feel the process and be able to say certain words like, you know, affirmations, affirming the fact that you are or have even a little bit of what you've done good actually instills in a person to do more good. And it gives them the free will, the freedom to increase their goodness inside themselves, rather than you thinking, I don't trust them, you know, they're not going to be able to pull this off, you know, I'm going to help, you know, by pushing this and doing this and saying that. But those things aren't doing anything other than pushing the person to where their second ray pushes down into their sixth ray, pushes it down. And that takes out their self-trust. It takes out their self-worth. It opens them up 100% to the process of a lack of discernment and discrimination. That's where it comes from. Yeah? And it opens us up to not being able to facilitate, you know, all of humanity to stop having pets, yeah, to stop playing football, yeah, to not move towards certain belief systems like nuclear, you know, power plants and, more fossil fuel, because we should, things like that. It leads us literally out of that by keeping a strong sixth ray, second ray. It's that sixth ray, second ray, by meditating, by using tools, by doing affirmations, it instills inside of you the increase of moving that up like this. And in doing that, it forces all the other chakras to take alignment, and you actually start getting a windfall of information that comes from Christ. Yeah? Does that make sense? Because imagine this is a government. This is governed by Christ. Yeah? All things are governed by Christ. The initiative of technology, the process of politics, the process of education, the process of how we see history, the process of how we're going to make manifest cultural identity and ways that we're going to work things out in relationships. All are governed by the influence of Christ and the Christ mind and the Christ consciousness and the Christ attitude or the Christ way of being. Yeah? Yeah? That information, that energy comes through our sixth ray and second ray. Yeah? So it's by doing meditation and by actually being a little bit more aware of the fact that just, is a symptom in yourself that you need to, once you immediately start to say it, your emotions will start getting all energized, yeah? And that's because your heart is going down like this, yeah? And then your body starts heating up, your influences start changing, your kundalini starts representing it in a different direction, because you could be a very powerful spiritual person. And all of a sudden you find yourself out of touch with yourself, yeah? And that leads everything to a disarray or an imbalance. Yeah. So meditation has the ability for us to actually hone in to the two chakras that actually hold balance to everything else. Imagine that the chakras are like this, yeah? And the two chakras that hold balance, this center point, is the energy of the second ray. Yeah. It's your heart chakra. Yeah. And here is the energy of your solar plex. Here's the energy of your throat, your brow, crown, your base, your sacral, your solar plex, your heart. Yeah. So right here, just between what affects this center point, yeah, if we can affect that center point and have that be in its positive, harmonic, receptive energy, then we are developing empathy. It's a telepathic influence that has to be developed in humanity in order for the president to change, in order for makers of cars to change. It is empathy. It is empathy that makes a ruler in a country go, I can't do nuclear bombs because I have empathy. My dreams are now telling me what it would be like, what would be the outcome. You can actually see the outcome of a process, and you don't want it to happen like that. Does that make sense? And you want to protect people from harm. It's automatic. There's nothing else we could do. It's our automatic Christian way. It's our Christ-like being. Yeah? Make sense? Okay, so I read that somewhere. Don't know where, but must have been important. Okay, so now we're going to do meditation. And meditation consists of Om, yeah, and Aum. And it's A-U-M, yeah? We're going to do A-U-M 3 times. We're going to do that in the first 3 ohms, and then 3 ohms after that of Om. And then right after that, I'm going to do an invocation, yeah? And we're going to invoke the power, the love, the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad, and then more invocation, more invocation. Each line that I do, each sentence that I do, you repeat after me, yeah? And that invocation aligns us to the solar plex and to the heart. Yeah? I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom. Power, love, wisdom. Yeah? That's your heart center. Yeah? Courage, strength. That's power. Yeah? All the energy of your will really comes from your heart. Doesn't come from the first ray of the chakra, all that kind of stuff. It actually comes from your heart. Your strength, your courage to change, your courage to lead, your courage to teach, your courage to be empathy, your courage to be compassionate, your courage to make a difference in your life, to change things moving forward in an evolutionary way, is always the heart center. Yeah? But to invoke it, it requires your emotional center. Yeah? Yeah? So you're going to invoke. Yeah? So you're literally using your solar plex to invoke your heart center to have an effect. Yeah? So then, to guide me into the right activity in the plan. Well, thought form building is the heart center. It's the energy of your creative activity, how you're going to manifest things throughout your life. What is going to be the next stage? What's going to be the next situation that you're going to do? How and why? Understanding is what comes from the heart center. Yeah? And that's the right activity in the plan. And then to clarify and stimulate my mind. Your heart center and your mind, your soul and your mind is actually the influence of your heart center. Yeah? How you think in higher mind. Yeah? How you think with empathy, how you think with understanding. All of that and wisdom comes from the heart center. So everything we're doing in this invocation is to increase the energy of the heart center so it becomes the center of our energy. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah. And then it all in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And that's invoking the process of the monad. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit. Yeah? And the monad is actually the manifestation of the heart center. Yeah? It's out of the heart center that the energy of the third ray comes, and the energy of the first ray comes, and the center of that is the second ray. So in reality, all these rays, the first and the third, love, yeah, and wisdom, manifest out of this influence of the second ray. Yeah? So we're actually, the Father is love, yeah? And the Father is wisdom. And the Father is the energy of the Spirit that manifests us to move forward to do the right thing. Yeah? So we're all taking on a relationship to be incarnated in the embodiment of the Father. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? I'm not talking male, female. I'm talking the relationship of God and how that relationship actually manifests the willful actions inside of humanity that become compassionate and empathy, just like God. Yeah? And then we become the children of God. We become male, female, we become all these things, just a child of God. Yeah? So that's the invocation. We do that, and then right after that, about a minute after that, we're focusing on our breath, and we're going to go into Om, and we're going to do it for 20 minutes. And at the end of that 20 minutes, I'm watching a clock. I'll say 2 minutes. And at that 2 minutes, we get quiet, but we still focus on our breathing. And we go into a process to where we're listening to what I call a soul therapy. Yeah, and it's also an invocation using me, doing an invocation of, coming destiny. And it's all about us having imagery and seeing the process of invoking a certain pattern of higher ways of seeing the energy, just like seeing a rose, in a ball, or in a wheel, manifesting, going through two doors, passing and then just disappearing. Then another one manifesting, it's coming out of you and it's going through two doors and it's disappearing. All these things are connected to your heart center in a state of understanding that is totally understandable by you, but not so much by your lower mind, it's not so much connected to that. So it really requires your ability to carry out an imagery and facilitate an affirmation that becomes a recognition and an awakening of wisdom that instills inside of you the ability to manifest your soul in your body, moving through certain processes and certain relationships. So that invocation lasts for about 13 minutes, and during that, there are 2 times when I say, do the Om 3 times. And when I say that, I'll do the Om on the CD, and you repeat with me the Om. So we'll all do Om 3 times. And then another time will come, we'll all do Om 3 times. When we do the meditation, we focus on breathing. The focus of breathing is a yoga. It's focused on the relationship of bringing the breath in deeply, bringing it all the way down deep into the lowest part of your body, filling up down here all that you can. And I go for 10 seconds, but normally people make 6, so I kind of stop between 5 and 6 and then start the Om again. Yeah? So all of us focus on deep breath and focus on doing the Om on the breath coming out. And even when we're in silence, we continue focusing on the breath, because in reality we're doing mind over matter. We're doing a process where we have to use our heart in order to instill the will. But we're not using like, I got to do this, I got to do this. We're reminding ourselves. We're gaining strength. Yeah? We're gaining the ability to become sensitive enough to the fact that we're just unaware of the fact we're not doing our breathing. We're not breathing correctly. Yeah? So just by staying focused on that gives us mindfulness. Yeah? And that allows our mind to think in an integrated way that's very simple, but yet it's mind over matter. Yeah? And it increases prana inside of our body, so that while the energy that we're creating in this energy of the influence of breathing, we're actually creating a rhythm of influence to where we're taking elements in and we're breathing elements out. And in that process, we're transforming the world by going along with the rhythm that manifests with it. Like 365 days of the year, 24 hours, 60 minutes, all of that has a rhythm to it. And if we just like shallow breathe and just go along with whatever, we're really not connecting our relationship to our rhythm. Yeah? And that's where we can make the biggest difference in our life. Rather than thinking we can control our life and all the things in it, if we just try and control breathing through meditation, we'll find that it has a rippling effect of naturally moving us toward discernment and be consciously, naturally aware of the positive things we are doing and how they manifest change in our life. And we start adding them up. And we start feeling actually very proud of ourselves, very happy for ourselves, very connected to ourselves, very much feeling that we're doing good things for other people because we're doing good things for ourselves. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay, so let's start the meditation. Remember, we're going to do deep breathing all the way through it. Yeah? We're going to do the Om, Aum, A-U-M. We're going to do the Om, Om. Yeah? And we're going to stay really with our eyes closed and focused. Yeah? 20 minutes is a long time. Yeah? It can lead to tingling and all kinds of stuff because you're putting oxygen in your body where you normally don't have oxygen. Yeah? So it's a really good thing. Imagine how much oxygen you're putting into your brain for 20 minutes. And then you increase that during the puja. So you're doing at least 40 minutes of increased oxygen, in-depth oxygen development, which is one of the best things you'll ever find for your metabolism and for the helping to heal your body, is breathing. Yeah? Okay, so let's relax, close our eyes. Okay, take a deep breath. I invoke the power, the love, the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad.
I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad.
To guide me into the right activity in the plan.
To guide me into the right activity in the plan.
To clarify and stimulate my mind.
To clarify and stimulate my mind.
To transform and transmute my feelings and emotions.
To transform and transmute my feelings and emotions.
To energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body.
To energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body.
So there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body.
So there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body.
Through this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ to serve the One.
Through this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ to serve the One.
All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, take a deep breath. 2 minutes. Stay focused on your breathing. Keep it deep and very slow. Relax yourself. Focus yourself in the soul. Then sound the Om. Breathe it out upon the world of all mankind. And quietly, without sound, express the will of God moves the world. This is a thought you should keep while expressing the Om. Then say slowly and thoughtfully, the past has gone. I am the past. It makes me what I am. The future comes. I also am the coming destiny, and therefore I am that. The present flows from out the past. The future colors that which is. I make the future also by my present knowledge of the past and the beauty of the present, and therefore I am that I am. Sound the Om 3 times softly. Then say quietly, with intent and emotional poise, I know the law, and towards the goal I strive. Naught shall arrest my progress on the way. Each tiny life within my form responds. My soul has sounded forth that call, and clearer day by day it sounds. The glamour holds me not. The path of light streams clear ahead. My plea goes forth to reach the hearts of all mankind. I seek, I cry to serve your need. Give me your hand and tread the path with me. Focus inward daily. Use the breath and the sacred word. Then do the following intensive visualization exercise. Imagine a path of golden light leading from where you stand to a vast, two-leaved door. Then see, rolling along this path, a disc or a wheel of rose, which you send forth, and which eventually disappears through the door. Then send along the same track a disc of vivid green, and follow it by a disc of golden yellow. Both disappear the same way. Then send a disc or a wheel of a radiant electric blue, which rolls along the golden path, but which does not enter through the door, but remains there, hiding the door from sight. Picture then yourself as standing before the electric blue disc, having traversed the golden path, and there meditating upon the following words. I am the way myself, the door I am. I am the golden path, and in the light of my own light I tread the way. I enter through the door, I turn and radiate. Sound the Om 3 times, breathing it out upon the world from the highest point in your consciousness that seems to you at all possible. As one awakens to their place in the plan of God, and they bring forth dharma unto the world, it is to dissipate all world glamour. Ponder upon the old commentary of thousands of years ago, which is written, "They come and stand within the midst of the whirling forms, some of a beauty rare and some of horror and despair, they stand. They look not here or there, but with their faces turned toward the light they stand. Thus through their minds the pure light streams to dissipate the fogs. They come and rest. They cease their outer labors, pausing to do a different work. Within their hearts is rest. They run not here or there, but from a point of peace and rest. That which upon the surface veils and hides the real begins to disappear, and from the heart at rest a beam of dissipating force projects, blends with the shining light, and then the mist of all mankind's creation disappears. They come and they observe. They own the eye of vision. Likewise, they own the eye of right direction, of all empowered forces. They see the glamour of the world, and seeing, they note behind it all the true, the beautiful, and the real. Then through the eye of the Buddha comes the power to drive away the veiling, swirling glamours of that glamorous world. They stand, they rest, they observe. Such are their lives and such the service that they render to the world of mankind. Focus upon the power to stand within the light, leading to right reflection of the light. The power to rest in spiritual being, so as to focus the soul within the chosen field of service. The power to attain right observation, so as to see correctly that which should be done. Your soul energy normally finds expression through the highest quality of mind. Think in the highest form of beingness and allow yourself to rest. Sound the Om as the personality. Do so at the highest mental point, raising your aspiration at the same time with the mind to the soul. Then sound the Om as a soul, breathing it out into the will to love all beings and arresting its descent at the astral body, do this by an act of will and the use of the creative imagination. Having vitalized the astral body and imagined the fusion of the soul, the personality, and the astral force, then direct this triple beam of energy to the heart center, rushing it directly into the heart center, so it might be expressed as the soul. Focus upon this invocation. I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad to guide me into the right activity in the plan, to clarify and stimulate my mind, to transform and transmute my feelings and emotions, to energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body, so there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body. Through this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ, to serve the One. All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. Another meditation. All right, so empathy. Yeah. It's not easy to come by. Yeah. My process was easy. Yeah. My process of empathy started when I was a really small child. Yeah. I mean, really, really small. And it was so overwhelming, so much telepathy, so much empathy, that I was led to actually go from house to house to house to house, hundreds of houses as a child. Most kids don't do this, most kids don't go knocking on doors, but I went with my wagon and I'd knock on doors, and I had a booklet, and I asked the house if it was possible that I could actually check their house for safety violations. And they go, well, what do you mean by safety violations? And I said, well, there are things that happen in the house that are unsafe. They cause fires, they can cause accidents, they can cause situations that can be prevented. And these are death things. These are things that can actually kill you. And so this could affect your entire family. It could affect houses next door, everything. So if we all kind of were more aware of this, then it would be much healthier for us all. So it got me through the door, and it started off with a list: the name of the house, the name of the people, the house address, the date that I went there. Very simple initial thing. And then it was a matter of me walking very slowly through the house, and I would start picking up energy. I'd start picking up where the violations are at, and I'd ask, can I go into the kitchen, and then I'd say, how many children are there, and they'd say, well, we have 3 children. I'd say, how old are they, and I'm not even 7 years old, maybe 8, so but I'm big. So, and I'm pretty outgoing, very outgoing, very, very outgoing. Like little Elvis Presley running around, as though I'm, everybody knows me, as though I'm thinking that, everybody loves me, so I just had it easy. So I get in there and I'd ask these questions, and I'd open the cupboard. They'd tell me how many children, so then immediately I'd open cupboards. And I'd say, these are toxins, these are poisonous. This says right here, poisonous. You know, is there any chance that one of your little children, 3 years old, could open this cupboard, actually go in here and drink that, you know? And they said, oh, I never thought about that. And I said, well, then maybe you should put a rubber band around this cabinet door, you know, keeping it hard for the child to open, and anything hard would actually stop them right off the bat. You know, they just go on and move to something else, because they don't know what's in there. Yeah, and they go, oh, that's a great idea. From a little 7-year-old, that's a great idea. You know, so I'd write that down. You know, they're going to do this. You know, and this is going to be done. Yeah, and then I'd go to the next thing, and I'd look under carpets, and I'd find extension plugs that are frayed, and you know, could cause a fire. And I'd find sockets that had many plugs in them that could cause a fire. I'd go into bathrooms, and I'd find that there's no rugs on the bathroom floor, and that the bathroom floor is easily slippable if it's wet, you know. And I'd point that out, and I said, have you ever had a moment where you've come out of the bath and you've slipped, you know? Oh, yeah. You know, and I said, well, you know, that's going to kill you. Yeah. And he said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, it's going to kill you. You're going to fall and break your neck, you know. And, you know, someone here is going to fall and break their neck, you know, or harm themselves in some way. What if you hit yourself, you know, on this cabinet, you know? Don't you think that would really, you know? And they go, whoa, you know, very dangerous. Yeah. So you're going to put down carpets, little rugs, little flow rugs, you know, even around the toilet, you know, wherever, you know. And I said, what about the shower, you know? And they go, well, what do you mean? You know, well, slip, you know, fall, yeah. And they go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea, you know. So I go from bathroom to into their, you know, places where they never think anybody should ever go, you know. But I'm a little kid, so it's really easy to ask these questions, and they just keep going, yeah, okay. I go to the garages and find rags everywhere, and I'd find, you know, oil, and find gas cans sitting next to a furnace, you know, and, you know, literally find these things, yeah. And then I'd notice that there's stacks and stacks of newspapers and stacks of bottles, you know, and all kinds of things that people aren't doing anything about. So I made a list of other things that I need to be doing, you know, like going around recycling everybody's bottles and everybody's newspapers and everybody's magazines, and, you know, doing all this kind of stuff, you know. So slowly but surely, within a few years, I had a process where this is all I did, yeah. And for about, I think I was around 8 or 9, about a year and a half, 2 years into it, people started calling the fire department and asking if there's some little kid running around actually doing, you know, safety violation checks, you know, and do they know that there is someone doing that, you know. It's really made quite an effect in their house and their, you know, and how they deal with things, and I said, no. And then, you know, they, you know, found out it was true, you know. So they called the newspaper and the fire department, and they tell the fire department that there's a little boy that we want to give an honorary fire department badge to, you know, and, you know, make him a fireman, yeah. And I'm like turning 8, you know, and my parents know nothing of this. And there's nothing telling me I should do shit like this, nothing other than my empathy. Yeah, and, you know, so, and I don't want recognition. I just want to help. You know, I don't want to see another fire. I don't want to see any, you know, it would drive me crazy. You'd never know how much I didn't sleep, how much I didn't, you know, it wasn't like I was in fear. It's just that I was in a state of recognition of the things that people needed help with, and I didn't want to wait until I was older. Yeah. So I'd go through this process, and then they'd take me to the fire department. And then when I got to the fire department, they said, well, where are your parents? You know, and I rode there on my bike, you know. And I said, well, you know, I think my mom's working or something, you know. My dad's working, no one's home, you know. And they said, well, do you have a telephone number? Yeah. So they call there, and they call my mom, and they go, well, your son's at the fire. What? You know, yeah, the newspaper's here and everything, and we're putting him on the fire truck, and we're going to give him this honorary fireman thing, you know. And she's, who are you talking about? You know, and it says, she goes, you know, so she's like, you know, are you, you know, totally frantic, you know, going, what has he done? What is he, you know? Yeah, so she gets there, and there's this great big thing going on. I mean, you know, papers, newspapers, flashing, you know. I'm just this nice kid, you know, saving lives, you know. And so that's like, you know, kind of, you know, my parents become aware of the fact that I've got shit going on that they're not aware of. And then they kind of find out, that I have literally, I go out early in the morning and I do paper routes, but at the same time I pick up papers while I'm delivering papers. Yeah? So I pick up everybody's papers and magazines and I deliver papers. And then, I go back around and I pick up their bottles and I actually pay them for the bottles. Like you get 3 cents a bottle, 10 cents a bottle for other ones, And I'd actually take my own money and pay them, for their bottle, not full amount, because I get paid a little bit, I'm not dumb. So I go and recycle these things. And so I had this process going on that my parents had no idea that I was doing, that I was recycling, I was doing safety measures, I was doing all this stuff. And then, by the time I think I turned right around 9, then I'm NASA, which wasn't NASA, it was, like Kennedy or some shit, developing a space program, working on Mercury, working on this and that, and it hit me really hard, that, this is so unsafe, what happens, have they thought of everything, and in my mind, I'm thinking, no, they haven't, and these are, events that'll take place, and, so I go and buy a typewriter, and I bring the typewriter back, and I start, typing, and I put my name on. I don't say how old I am or anything like that. I just present myself as though I'm an engineer. Yeah, and I'm not 9 yet. Yeah, and I'm saying, these are factors involved in the relationship of the, the Mercury program. And first, I'll start with the spacesuit. First of all, they have no way of urinating. What happens when they're on board ship and they have to urinate? What are they going to do? And there's no way of me knowing that they don't really have that. Yeah, but it's my feelings that they don't have this. So and then I go, okay, now onto the capsule. The capsule is very unsafe. You're putting in too much oxygen. It should not be contained inside the ship itself. It should be only in their helmet. They should leave their helmet on at all times and always be in that way. That way there's no enormous amount of oxygen in the system causing a possible fire, because that's going to be a real hazard. Yeah. So then I said, and then the other thing is that they don't have an escape way. They have no way to escape. What happens if something goes on and they need to escape? Is there any way to get that door off real fast, and, so I then come up with inventions, here's a blowboat, using a little dynamite pellet on the bolt that blows the bolt off and the door just goes flying away, and, so I come up with that, and then here's what you should do, and here's how you should work with relationship of peeing in the suit. Yeah, literally put a catheter in the person and run it out and into a bag, and then the person could take the bag off and put it someplace and continue their day and so I'm like continuing all these letters to the space program, like a lot of them, and kind of find out the first guy that goes up, Alan Shepard or something, he goes up, he's on board ship too long, it takes too long for them to finally take the flight and go into space, he has to pee. So he has to pee in a suit. And he's in space with gravity going like that, and drops going all over his face and all over his body, and he's dealing with this, and I'm sure they're ruffling through their notes going, who was it that said we should maybe make it better? And so I'm getting letters back, thanking me for, after that first event, thanking me, that we've taken this under consideration. This is what happened, and we will begin a process of changing the suit and beginning a process of looking into oxygen, but that's really not something that we think is going to be trouble, which then it was the only thing that killed 5 astronauts was the increased oxygen, which was not necessary on board ship. And so then they took that in consideration. And another one where they couldn't get out, the door couldn't open, and there was no way of safely getting them out. That happened in the same event, so they had to create these blowbolts, that were everything right off my notes. So here I am, by the time I'm 11 years old, I have furthered the space program to a safe, nice little mission onto the Apollo program, to where they can go in doubles, and they can do things and possibly even land on the moon. So here, that's what empathy is doing to me, yeah? And I'm, just day by day, I'm going through one process of another, working through this energy behind empathy that is very powerful, and it doesn't fit the logic. I don't have this logic process going on in my brain, so I'm not good in school. I can't take tests. I can't memorize anything, yeah? My brain just isn't working like that. I'm totally functioning out of my heart, totally functioning through the emphasis of overshadowing processes that are coming from my higher self, yeah? From me in the future, and all the future of humanity is pouring through me, and I'm just furthering that process, yeah? So, that's me in, as childhood. By the time I'm 9, Tibetans come and say he's the holy Buddha, and terrorize my parents and saying that they're going to take me away, and, you got to give us your child, let us take him to Nepal and teach him, and he could be our reincarnated Buddha, the teacher of all of Tibetan Buddhism, founder of Tibetan Buddhism, all that shit. I'm only 9 years old at the time in a common, everyday LA house with American Indians, of all things, and they're not exactly into this sort of thing, So by the time I get to that age, I have shown and radiated so much empathy, so much power of choice of discernment and discrimination, going in, knocking on doors, doing things, writing things, just elevating, not focusing on, here I am only 8, here I am only 7, I can't do this. What if, someone finds out? What if, I'm found to be an idiot? None of those thoughts ever passed through my mind, yeah? It was always empathy, always a movement, so it had strong radiatory focuses of energy that was going out into the world, yeah? And during the Kennedy time and the nuclear war and Cuba and all of that, I was so empathetic. I was almost like in the office of Washington, D.C. with Kennedy. And I couldn't be more than 10 years old, and I'm so empathetic, so on top of it, that I'm actually, in my mind, I'm thinking we need to embargo. We need to actually put ships around Cuba. We need to actually cut them off from trade of any kind. We need to actually make a direct relationship with Russia and not confront them with nuclear bombs, but tell them that we will actually pull away nuclear bombs that are facing toward them in any close area that they feel threatened by. Yeah, because that's why they put them there. And that's what came in my mind. This is just like a 10-year-old kid. And these are exact things that Kennedy did. He said, I will take nuclear bombs out of Turkey. I will keep them from directing towards you. You move the bombs out of, the missiles out of Cuba, and, we'll negotiate. Yeah, and they were able to do a negotiation without any threat of hostility whatsoever. Yeah, and that was through each one, through both empathy inside of Kennedy and empathy inside of the Russian that was in charge at the time. Yeah, they actually saw things from my perspective. Yeah, yeah. So, and it's same with NASA, same with anything, same with all these kind of things. Empathy has the ability to actually impress upon humanity and bring about changes that could be monumental in relationship to how the earth is going to be structured, or whether or not we're going to have a terrible war, or whether or not we're going to go through a terrible process. I was actually drafted when I was 18 years old, yeah? There was no draft up to that time, yeah? No one drafted anybody in the Vietnam War. And they decided all of a sudden that they're going to draft into the Vietnam War. And I was one of the first 12 people to be drafted, very first, yeah? And out of those 12 people, they took 24 of those people and put them into the United States Marine Corps as a test, yeah, just to see whether or not they could draft just in the Army, or should they also include them in the Marines, yeah? Yeah, so I was thrown in. Here I am, a conscious objector, a Buddhist with great empathy, thrown into the military in order to, do what I'm supposed to do, according to them. But I go in with my discernment and my empathy, and I have the strength to say, I'm a conscious objector, and I will not hold a weapon, and I will not be trained in weaponry, even though I'm in boot camp. Yeah, I'm not going to do this. Yeah, and they beat the crap out of me. They beat me, they broke my legs, they threw me out a 2-story window, they left me for dead. Yeah, and never once did I say, okay, I'll hold your gun, I'll be trained, I've had enough. You put me in this jail 3 times, a total of 2.5 months, longer than anybody that I know of in the history of the Navy, of something like that, and I willfully did it because of empathy, There was just no other way that I could go about that process. And I couldn't go, well, what if? I couldn't go, well, I'll try and do something like that. Empathy just doesn't allow a person's will. Your heart is stronger than your fear of your solar plex. The process that's in your heart has an enormous sense of understanding of what is really, truly discerning, and then you can discriminate. You have all the strength and all the courage and all it takes to manifest the ability to pull off correct discrimination and allow it to continue manifesting in discernment. And you may be the only person in the room, the only person on the planet who's holding that particular level of consciousness. But that's what empathy will give you. And that's how you get to enlightenment. That's how you go from one level to the next level to the next level, and you actually permeate the whole entire planet in relationship to focusing on one thing: soulful reality, soulful mind, very integrated ability to think at the most highest mind despite any kind of processes around you. Even if it's the military busting you down, saying, even if you go to a Catholic, I went to a Catholic priest in the military, and I told him, what would Christ do? I mean, if you handed Christ a gun and you said, you're drafted, would you force him to learn to train with a gun and go and shoot somebody because you're going to tell him that that's God's way, like Abraham has to kill his son or something? That we have to sacrifice our lives in order to do this? We have to sacrifice other people's lives in order to pull this off, to save our family, to protect them? Would you do that to Jesus? Well, what if Jesus had disciples? Would you do that to his disciples? Well, what if the disciples of Jesus is all the people in the world? Should any of the people in the world pick up a gun and shoot another person? Should we all be violent? Should we all carry out these things that Jesus would never do? And you're a Catholic priest. How would you start this? Would you start this by, saying, well, good idea, conscious objector, I'll back you on that, not like everybody's going to go do this, but I'll back you. No, he says, no, can't back you, and I honestly believe if Jesus was here, he would do it. Because he would have the strength to stand up and protect his family. And I said, what do? You either go off and have a nervous breakdown, or do what I did, which was continue the process, just saying, no, I won't do it. And let them just continue beating me until the day was over with and they finally let me graduate. Funny, they didn't throw me out of the military. You'd think they'd throw someone out of the military like that, Nah, they keep me in the military, let me graduate without even going through boot camp, and go on to something else, just, because they can. But that's what, empathy is a process. And I believe that my process in that Vietnam War was a process to end the war, to raise the consciousness of humanity to conscious objector. And I did that. I raised the whole United States to a collective consciousness of conscientious objection against the war in Vietnam. And masses of hundreds of thousands of people stood up and said, this isn't happening, and it drove the president crazy. Mm-hmm. It made him have a nervous breakdown and quit his office. He would not go for another term because of the level of Christ consciousness that was coming at him of discernment and discrimination, and he couldn't go along with it. If it had been Kennedy, he would have never furthered the war in Vietnam. He would have pulled out by the time he had made a second term. He would have pulled out of Vietnam, because he was overshadowed by Christ. Christ is the governing power on this planet. Always will be, whether I'm a little 2-year-old child or I'm 134,000 years old. It doesn't matter. It's that constant, elevated Christ consciousness, Yeah? That process of empathy that is impressed into humanity to develop. Yeah? So all of us has to try and foster this process so that when we become little kids and in our next life or even in this life, we foster the process of our empathy so that we actually use our soul to help other people not become harmed. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? I built this center. I built this not for me. Yeah? I went through a lot of trouble to put this thing together. I went to Tibet and went up against all Tibetans. I went to India and grabbed the foot of Satan himself, and stood amongst thousands of people as everybody was pissed off as I'm holding Sai Baba's foot to the ground, and he got really pissed. Yeah? I did that. Yeah? I did that because there were children being molested every day. Yeah? I came forth and told everybody who Michael Jackson was and what his previous life was because of my empathy toward what he was doing in the world. And if that continued in the world, it would create homosexuality as a culture. And we would not see it as a perversion. We would not see it as an act in which can be harmful to the process of all human race. We wouldn't see it that way. Because we'd cover up Michael Jackson and thinking that, okay, he's probably not gay, he's probably not molesting children. Come on, yeah? Even our discernment and discrimination never got him judged. Even our discernment and discrimination never got Sai Baba judged, yeah? Because that's mainly because we are being furthered into a massive cultural process in order to further the ability for guys out of prison who molested and raped little boys can be put karmically in a process to where they're working in shelters for children, they're working in daycare centers, they're working in the Boy Scouts, they're making it possible for them to rent buildings and have enormous numbers of those perverts there who actually are very interested in little children and everything, and they're right next to a school. Yeah, we found that's in the news right now, of a very large building full of guys out of prison who rape and molest little children, and they're right across the street from a school. How'd they do that? How's that possible? How is it that a large number of child care centers are actually ran by people who are in and out of prison for child molestation? Yeah? And none of these people are thought to be gay. Child molesters are like in a totally other realm. They're not gay. No, we don't know. Whatever. It's, child molestation. It's not homosexuality. And it's not true. It's a perverted inner response of habit that is so perverted that it takes the person directly into unlawful means that allows them to abduct or to take a child outside their human rights and do shit to them that only their perversion will allow them to be acceptable in their own little world. Yeah? Yeah? We have all kinds of processes like that are going on in the world, and it's opening up doors and avenues for people to lose their ability for empathy. Yeah? So meditation, the building of this center, the putting out of the tools and everything is a way for me to channel the influence of empathy that comes from Christ, that actually does all the things that Christ does. Yeah? And that's a whole other culture. It's a culture in and of itself. Yeah? And it's a counterculture to the process of the culture that humanity has built. Yeah? So in my look, the way I see the world in a state of destruction. The culture that is counterculture to Christ will fall. Yeah? And it will be rebuilt in the culture of Christ. Yeah? And it's not any kind of religion. It is empathy. It's a greater power in our heart, greater power of the will of God, a greater power of the Holy Spirit that'll bring this about. Just like it did in me, why I went around and knocked on doors, why I helped the space program, why I created the electric car. Why would I put $500,000? I do not have $500,000. But I came up with $500,000 over a 10-year period of saving money, putting it aside. I came up with this money in order to foster a company to build an electric car. Actually, an electric car company. Before there was, all these other big companies happening. Yeah? And I went through everything, how to make the car, how to design the car, what are the qualities of the car that had to be built, exactly how it has to run, every single thing. And they couldn't pull it off, yeah? I mean, it was everything. There was so much inertia, so much negative, so much bullshit, keeping that from manifesting. But by the empathy of the action, it put into the will aspect, into humanity, a counterculture, which is with my culture, which overshadowed, the guy who made Tesla. And he not only made Tesla, but he made the electric car, he made the relationship to solar, he made the relationship to the space program, all those things within the Christ government, all those things within the energy behind the culture of Christ. Does that make sense? Yeah? So I'm not saying Elon Musk is some kind of saint, I'm saying Christ is a saint. Yeah? And Elon Musk is picking up the culture of Christ, and it's making him a better person. And it's making this a better world. Yeah? So for every empathetic process that I move through is a process to shift the cultural identity that humanity is manifesting to destroy humanity. And that's all about harmlessness. Yeah? Emphasizing harmlessness. So do your best to help me out here, and try not to be the one who goes, oh yeah, but. Yeah, and it's everybody that does that, and it doesn't mean you got a low quality in you. Doesn't mean that you're not making it. It just means that is the 99% of the energy that's out there, and I'm just I'm like sitting in the cosmos a gazillion million miles away, even though I have a body sitting here, and it's really hard for me to help you get an integration of all of this space that I take care of. Yeah. Yeah, it just seems way too overwhelming, and it really is. Yeah, so I provide meditation, I provide the tools and everything, and I do the work. Yeah, and your process is that you need to witness the miracle and be supportive in the process of that miracle, and get a better understanding as to why the miracle is happening, and don't take credit. Yeah, don't take credit for your fault of being the one who goes, oh yeah, but Don't worry about that. So shit, you did. Yeah? But it'll go away. Just go, oh yeah, but, and then go, oh. And then again, things are working and we're doing all this and all that. Yeah? Does it make sense? Yeah? Because there's a healing crisis in everything, and we have a major cultural process and an indebtedness to the past of following Hitler and following the Pope and, following the process of dark lodge processes that go on in the world. We have an enormous indebtedness to that. Yeah, it impresses upon our astral field. It impresses upon our consciousness, and it gives us a way of thinking and behaving. Yeah, so we're in a process of actually receiving a blessing of the science of redemption that clears our indebtedness by the culture of Christ. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because if I go around and I do this fire department thing, that affected the whole world. The whole world started doing that. Yeah. When I was in the military, I became aware of ambulances. Yeah, and ambulances are like they're nothing more than the same hearse that takes you to the funeral home, and on to the grave. They're the same car. Yeah, now it's called an ambulance. Yeah. And the person who's driving is no more technically able than a person who drives a taxi. They're just going to throw you in there, jump in the front seat, and drive through traffic, and try and get you to a hospital, with no care whatsoever as you're getting there. Nothing. Yeah. Well, empathy hit me big time, so I came up with EMT. Yeah. And developing vans. Yeah. And changing over from emergency room to emergency technician, and from an ambulance to an actual small emergency room. And each person, whether he be a fireman who's at the scene first, or a person who is trained as an emergency medical technician does the job, not an ambulance driver. You have to be well trained, and it has to be a fully fortified EMT process. You know, the whole entire unit, everything. Yeah. So I started that in Oakland. I started in Berkeley. I sent out letters to many other places, and it facilitated that, and it became worldwide. Yeah. Yeah. I started the process of burn units. I started the process of cell regeneration, of actually doing stem cell work on people. That was back in 1971. And there were no thoughts of doing stem cells. And I'd take the placenta and put it on burn patients, and that was stem cells that I was putting on there, and it actually regenerated the tissue and made it like baby brand new tissue. Yeah. So just by going through this empathetic process, one thing after another, you know, reestablishing all the technology inside of a hospital. I did all that, yeah. I establishing how the IV works, how the IV process goes into the body, how you put a shot through the IV. I created the sterile field. I'm the one who invented that, yeah. I created EMTs. I created, you know, the process of us getting onto the moon safely, yeah. All done through empathy, yeah. And none of it done by any of you knowing that this guy, you know, by this name is doing all these things, and therefore he's very famous for this and this and this and this. I'm not famous for shit. Not for anything. Yeah? And yet I did it all. I did all of it. But I got no credit for anything. No, not inventions or anything like that. Not even the developing of the electric car. Nothing. Yeah? You know, but that's empathy. That's how empathy works, is that your second-ray energy actually does as a sense of response and a sense of right relationship toward developing harmlessness. So you're so caught in that process that it doesn't have any influence on you making money on it or developing some kind of, you know, identification, you know, of fame. Yeah? Yeah, so that's empathy. So enjoy yourself. Meditate daily if you can. If you can't, meditate once a week. And if you can do it at all possible, every weekend meditate with me, because it actually makes a big difference. Yeah, I'm physically incarnated for a reason. I'm always incarnated, but this is the first life that I've been able to incarnate, and we can massively communicate together, and we can massively do this simultaneously at the same time, and we are able to receive not only teachings, but meditations, and that's monadic influences, soulful influences, and ashramic influences, all in one sitting every day on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah? That's your weekend with God. Enjoy.